Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances, the podcast that's your ultimate guide to mastering personal finances and unlocking the secrets of entrepreneurship. Each week, we dive into the world of personal finance and business development and have fascinating conversations with industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories to help you get ahead in life. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone just starting out on your financial path, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable insights.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Poniotu, certified financial planning professional, the Cap in Capitalize. And on today's episode, a bonus episode, we are going to get into a very topical, unique, unusual situation regarding DoorDash and financing food. I know that sounds very bizarre, and some of you are probably thinking, what even is financing food? Like, what does that mean? We will get into that, but as always, the free advice of the episode: buy what you can afford. I know that's a shocking piece of free advice, but it pertains to exactly what we are going to get into today. So when I was thinking about this episode, this emergency episode, if you will, I was thinking about all the ways that I could attack this and give you the information that you need, because it is pretty topical in the world of finance. But for those of you that are not as well versed into what is going on, I want to give you some background. So how this episode is going to play out and go down. We're going to first go over what the hype is about this DoorDash new deal, because some of you may be very well aware of what's going on. Others may not have heard of anything, and others are probably somewhere in the middle. So I want to catch you all up to speed. Then we're going to go into what are the options that DoorDash is going to provide you when it comes to payments. And it's not really DoorDash, it's the company that is partnering with DoorDash, which we're going to get into later in the episode. We're going to go over the pros and cons of doing this in terms of what people are saying. And then lastly, and maybe controversially, we are going to get my take on this whole thing. So this could be very exciting. So the first thing, let's get right into it. What in the world is going on? What is the hype with this new deal that I see with DoorDash? So DoorDash partnered with a company called Klarna. And this happened during the week of March 17th. And we are recording this as of late March 24th to be specific. So DoorDash partnered with a company called Klarna. And Klarna is a buy now, pay later payment company. And there are a number of companies out there, but Klarna is one of the big ones. And the reason why they did this partnership is they wanted to offer the ability to finance purchases of fast food orders and grocery purchases. Now, the fast food ordering is what is taking the internet by absolute storm right now. And admittedly, the memes that are coming out of this are very, very comical. So if you haven't looked those up, strongly recommend it. It will not disappoint. But as far as financing, a lot of you have hit me up going like, what does financing even mean? So financing is a term that refers to not being able to afford something in its totality as of today, but you pay as you go. So the most commonly known is if you finance a home, you buy a mortgage. You put a down payment on a home and you fund a mortgage for the rest of it. Okay. So if you bought a home for $500,000, most people don't have that just sitting around. And let's say you put 20% down. So you put a down payment of $100,000 down and you financed $400,000 at whatever that mortgage rate is over that period of time, 30-year, 15-year, whatever. Another common one is a car loan. So if you don't have the $20,000 for a car, put down $5,000, you finance the rest of the $15,000 over X amount of time. Now, this gets to be interesting because now for the first time ever, you can finance food purchases and grocery purchases. It gets a little gray when it comes to like funding a couch. So I remember my wife and I actually financed our couch in our living room. And it was during Black Friday where you put 50% down on the couch. And then it was a 5 years, 0% interest rate on the rest of the couch, which was an absolute steal. I would do that 10 out of 10 times again, but that's financing 101. Now, what are the options when it comes to this new payment strategy that DoorDash has partnered with Klarna? So I wanted to do the proper diligence and research for this episode, and most people are familiar with DoorDash. Most people are not familiar with Klarna. And so I actually went to their website, and it looks like when it comes to this new option, there are 3 main options that you're going to have when it comes to food and groceries. So you can pay in full, which is just, you strike your credit card, you pay the check, or whatever the case is. It's traditional payment. You pay for it and it's done. You pay for the groceries or your food in 4 interest-free payments. So that's over 4 consecutive months. And then there's a pay later to a quote unquote more convenient time that aligns with your paycheck schedule. So we went over the payments, the 4 payments. That is interest-free. It's an interest-free installment. So instead of paying $10 for a Chipotle or Chipotle, as our family calls it, a burrito bowl, you would pay in 4 installments of $2.50, interest-free over 4 months. And so I wanted to actually dig more in depth when it came to Klarna. And so I looked at their website. Now, by the way, if you go to their website as of this recording, they haven't updated the whole food payment plan yet. I would be shocked if they don't do that by the time this episode comes out. But we try to get this out as soon as possible. So who knows, we may beat them to it, but I digress. I went to their website, and the payment in full standard, we went over the 4 split payments. There's also the option, and this is where the pay later or at your convenience comes into play. You can pay in 30 days. So within 30 days, so if it's January 1 and you wanted to pay on January 30th, you would basically pay for that burrito bowl today, but then you'd have to pay for it on January 30th. Now, I went down this rabbit hole of what happens if it gets to January 30th and you don't have the funds to pay for that burrito bowl that you paid for on January 1st. And that is really beyond the scope of this episode, because I could go for hours on this. But the point is, that's one option. And then lastly, there's an option where you can choose to buy and pay off over 6, 12, 18, or 24 months. And this is where it gets a little dicey. Interest rates range from 7.99 to 33.99%, which is, astronomically high. And obviously that gets really, really, really nasty. But I want to move on to point number 3, because I don't want to put any opinion spins on this. I just want to give you the facts until the very, very end. Up until the very end. So I want to go over the pros and cons of doing this in terms of what people are saying with this DoorDash Klarna partnership. So I want to go over some of the pros, and some of them are obvious, some of them are not so obvious, but I'll let you be the judge into that. And this is in no particular order. The first pro, you can afford things that you otherwise cannot afford today. That much is obvious. That's no different than putting a down payment on a home or a car or student loans, things of that nature. But obviously we're talking about food and groceries. Number 2, minimize your cash outflow so you can take what's left over and invest it strategically for the long term. It's a little bit more obvious when you use a gargantuan payment like a mortgage, instead of spending $400,000 on the rest of that $500,000 home that we used hypothetically earlier in this episode. You instead put $100,000 down. That $400,000, let's say the interest rate is lower, and you take the difference over the period of 30 years if it's a mortgage, and you go and invest that accordingly. And in our book, we call that capitalizing on the spread. But you take that return and you go and you earn a larger return. Okay, so it's no different than this burrito bowl that we're talking about. The third one that I thought about as far as a pro, you strategically fund things that you can afford, but from a cash flow perspective, you can't afford right at this time. So this is kind of similar to what I just mentioned. The difference is, let's say that you know that you're getting paid at the end of the month, or you're getting a bonus in a month or two. And so you know that if you are prudent with your cash flow, you can buy all of these things today and then pay it all off in the coming month or months. And the cash flow side of things isn't really going to be affected in the long run. And then lastly, and this is one I actually found kind of intriguing. So for certain people that simply can't make it to the grocery store, if let's say they're disabled or whatever the case may be, and they truly are pinched for cash flow because it is more expensive to go and have someone deliver food or a grocery run to you, which that should be kind of obvious. But there's a huge pro into using something like this. Now, admittedly, that is a very small fraction of the population that simply cannot go, like physically go to the store and get groceries. It's that big of a burden. But, you know, I put my humanitarian hat on and I get it when it comes to that, okay? Now, let's go over some of the cons. So you start to stack up on eventual cash flow crunches if it's not managed correctly. So, you know, next thing you know, if you get to that point where you're going to have to owe on all of this, and now you're drowning in debt, that's no different than any other debt. Okay, it all adds up. Number two, interest rates start to eat into the overall monthly cash flow. Like I said, the $7.99 to $33.99 is, $33.99, not $33,000. That would be absolutely atrocious. But 7.99% to 33.99%. Those interest rates are going to eat in. I know this is now above and beyond the food and the grocery side of things, but a lot of people look at, oh my gosh, the monthly payment is so much lower every month. But you got to understand, this is where these companies make their money. They make the money on these, in some cases, egregiously high interest rates. And then the last con is, you know, if you have a high spending month and your payments can't be deferred anymore, you can't kick the can down the road anymore, you have to dip into your savings or your retirement prematurely, or you take out unnecessary debt. That gets to be really, really bad. So the last part, my take on this whole thing. So when people first started messaging me about this, I admittedly thought it was a joke because I thought it was just so beyond egregiously inappropriate. Like, why are you going to finance a burrito bowl or a McFlurry? Like, that is absolutely crazy. And by the way, those are where a lot of the memes were going to. And then I sat back, and no different than any other investment or planning concept or economic theory, I went into my thinking room and I just thought about it. And the more I thought about it and the more I compounded on the situation, the more I started to admittedly get kind of frustrated, because it is kind of an evil concept if you think about it. Because you got to understand, if you're listening to this episode, chances are you are toward the higher end of financial literacy, or you are choosing to improve your financial literacy. So in and of itself, you've already got a leg up on most people, because most people, let's face it, finance can be boring. It can be boring. It can be intimidating. It can be scary. And most people, and this actually goes above and beyond finance, they want the easy fix. Okay. That's why Blockbusters went out of business when Netflix came in to town, because Netflix said, hey, why go to the movie store and try to rent everything when you can sit on your butt at home and get it all done? What happened to GameStop? You had to go to the store and buy all the games. Well, Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, now you can just buy it from the console at home or on your computer. You can just download it at home. You don't have to go get a CD at GameStop anymore. And so it's no different than the world of finance and financing. A lot of people look at the wrong things. They look at, okay, what is the easiest route, or where can I pinch the most pennies, but in the long run, you will be pound foolish. And the thing that really struck me as evil with this is the people at Klarna and DoorDash, these are not stupid people. Okay, DoorDash, in fact, I believe just became it just hit the S&P 500 as a top 500 companies in the United States. Okay, so kudos to them, good for them. Okay, because it is a cool concept. You get to, dash to every door and deliver products and goods and services. Great, but this concept, it's not going to end well for people. Because most people, what they're going to do is all it takes, it's like a gateway drug. Not that I've done any gateway drugs, but you hear that. All it takes is one puff, one snort, one whatever. And next thing you know, you're hooked. It's no different than this. Oh, so, all right, let's say I'm going to watch a football game with my buddies. And, I drew the short straw, and Domino's is on me this time. And so this Domino's pizza is $40, okay? Or $40. And I just can't afford it. I just cannot afford that. But you know what I can do? I see this option with Klarna and DoorDash. I don't have to pay for this today. I can pay for it tomorrow. I'll just kick the can down the road. And then you do it the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Eventually, that next day will become today. And that's where it frankly pisses me off, because you've got these companies, which are not stupid companies, and they are prying on the financially illiterate when it comes to this, because you know what's going to happen. People are going to spend and get ahead of their skis. And we know this not just because of this deal. This is the icing on the cake of what's wrong in, frankly, the United States. The United States has a huge spending problem. You go online and you look at the debt just compound at a staggering rate. If anyone with an inkling of a brain goes and looks up the United States debt on the website and just stares at it, you should have the largest pit in your stomach, because someday that will have to be paid back. Someday. And unfortunately, if anyone goes and says, well, that, I won't have to pay for that. No, you will. Everyone has to pay for that. Every single person. And frankly, if you haven't learned the mistakes from the great financial crisis with mortgage subprime lending, that was a huge issue. You look at now this fact that people, and actually, this is just a fiscal thing. If you look at the fact that up until about 2022, interest rates have decreased over 40 years. And interest rates they're kind of jet fuel to an economy, but an inappropriate amount of jet fuel. Because when it comes to real estate, you're suddenly making more money, all things being equal. When it comes to a business, businesses are making money hand over fist because, instead of taking out a 10% loan, I can go and refinance to a 9% and an 8% and a 7%, all the way down to 2%. When you go back to during COVID in 2020, when interest rates were rock bottom in 2021, even a bond, if you go in bond investments, and between when you bought it and when it came due, because with bonds, this is how it works. When interest rates rise, bond prices decrease and vice versa. So seemingly all of these people got away with earning substantially greater returns in the bond market than they otherwise should have. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people that just didn't understand that, and a lot of advisors that frankly weren't even advising got away with it. So now you get to this point where we've gotten to this spending issue in the United States where and I get it. I get that it's getting tight for a lot of people, okay? And this has been happening really over the last 5 years, okay? And this DoorDash Klarna deal is kind of the cherry on top of what's happened over the last 5 years. Now, a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but think about it for a second. If your life has gotten that tight where you have to finance a burrito bowl from Chipotle, or you have to finance something from Taco Bell or McDonald's or Domino's or whatever the case is. And I'm not knocking all these food companies, okay? Because frankly, they're going along with it. You got to play the game in business, unfortunately. What's going to end up happening is, and I don't know when this is going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be 3 months from now. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months from now. I don't know if it's going to be a year or 2 years from now. But eventually, all of this has to catch up with people. The piper has to get paid. And who is going to be hurt the most with this? It's the people that simply don't understand. They don't understand these basic financial concepts of living within your means, spending appropriately, going and taking that difference and investing the rest. And some people simply can't go and invest the rest because I get it. It's a paycheck to paycheck thing. And this is going to be enticing because when you have something like this slap you in the face, this is, oh my gosh, this is my ticket. And you know what? It's just going to get better for me the next month and the next month and the next month. And eventually I'll go and pay this off. Well, that eventually just never happens. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if people suddenly default. And I'm not even trying to laugh, but it's crazy. It's like in 2008, in 9 and 10, after the great financial crisis, people were defaulting on their homes. Well, I don't know what happens if you default on a freaking burrito bowl or a piece of pizza or a burger. I have no idea what's going to happen with that, but I just know it's not going to end well. And so with the companies that are doing this, frankly, shame on you. Shame on both of you. You know I probably just killed any potential remote opportunity of having these companies as sponsors. Not that I really care because I wouldn't align myself with them anyways, but because of this, you are ripping off people that don't know that they're being ripped off, and you really should be ashamed of yourself. Now, how do we fix this? Frankly, if you're listening to this, don't do it. If you can't afford it, then don't buy it. It's a totally different thing. If you've got a home or a car and you got to get somewhere, or you've got like a student loan or a business loan, because you can go and reinvest that money and you will have some return on investment in the long run. Again, it's not guaranteed, but there's some assurance. There's some assurance that you're probably going to have some return on your investment on your home if you live in it for long enough. There's some there's some return on investment with like your education, whether it's college or trade school, or if you're starting a business and you believe in it, you've got a passion, you start to see the revenue and the profits compound. Like that loan, that SBA loan or what have you, it's going to be minimal in the grand scheme of the success of your life. There's no return on investment to fast food. None. Absolutely none. As far as your grocery bills, none. Other than the fact that you got to eat. I get that. So don't use this service. Do not use it. And if you have friends out there that do have a spending problem and a spending issue, send them this episode because you can save a lot of people. I know I'm doing my part and getting this out here. I'm going to pray for a lot of people that otherwise won't be able to watch this episode, but I just know this is going to end very, very, very poorly. So that does it for today's episode. Hopefully we don't have to do too many emergency episodes because that means that, frankly, there's an emergency. But until next time, as always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Paniotu, certified financial planning professional, the Cap and Capitalize. So until next time, keep capitalizing. Take care. As always, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about today's episode or any personal finance questions, please reach out to me at Cap and Capitalize on Instagram, Chris at capitalizeyourfinances.com, or via our website, capitalizepodcast.com. If you want more Capitalize Your Finances content, head on over to capitalizepodcast.com and check out our blog, free resources, book, and online course. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Panayiotou, certified financial planning professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. These materials are provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. The information in these materials may change at any time and without notice. There is no guarantee that any investment strategy will meet its stated objective. All investments involve risk, including potential loss of principal. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There's no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. S&P 500 Index is an unmanaged index and includes a representative sample of large-cap U.S. companies in leading industries. An investment may not be made directly in an index. It is important to keep in mind that investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity, interest rate, financial inflation risks, and special tax liabilities. Interest may be subject to the alternative minimum tax. Christopher Panayiotou is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Capitalize Your Finances LLC is a separate entity from LPL Financial. Capitalize Your Finances is not registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor. CRPS conferred by College for Financial Planning.